Man follows wife with drone, realizes why she wears makeup all the time. His heart was pounding as he followed his wife using a drone. After spending 18 years together, he could have never imagined she would do something like this to him. With every passing minute, he was becoming angrier and angrier as he watched her in secrecy. After she untied her hair, he felt his stomach drop. John and Donna were living in a cozy house in Honesdale, Pennsylvania. They had been happily married for 18 years and never faced any marital problems. John was madly in love with his wife even after so many years spent together. It felt too good to be true, and it was. What he witnessed that day will haunt him for the rest of his life. John and Donna had 2 children together, and their house was always filled with joy and laughter. He often wondered how he got so lucky with such a beautiful family. Their friends and neighbors were secretly jealous of them. The pair seemed like a perfect match, and their children were well-behaved and intelligent. Like any other married couple, John and Donna had some minor arguments here and there, but overall, they got along well. They understood each other and shared the same values and goals in life. John thought he knew everything about his wife, but he could not have been more wrong. He began noticing changes in Donna's behavior and her daily routine. She was working at a local pharmacy, and John was working from home. He knew when her shifts at work typically ended and what she would do before and after work. Then, suddenly, things got weird. His wife turned into a completely different person. Donna stopped wearing makeup years ago when they got married. Suddenly, she started using it again and even changed her style. Instead of pants, she was now wearing skirts and dressy blouses. Not only that, but she also started coming home late. John became suspicious. What was going on with his wife? John tried asking her about it, but Donna would give him short and cold replies. He tried to ignore his wife's strange behavior, but it was nearly impossible. He needed to get to the bottom of it and find out what she was really up to. But how could he do it? If he asked her again, he knew she would turn it into a big fight. John was a photographer and used different types of equipment to take photos, including a drone. After careful consideration, he decided to use it to find out what his wife was up to. He made a plan to secretly follow Donna to and from work by flying his drone above her. Little did he know how much he was going to regret his decision later. John decided not to waste any time and put his plan into action the very next day. Although he felt guilty about spying on her, he knew this was the only way to dig out the truth. He felt his entire body shake as he kissed Donna goodbye that morning. As soon as she stepped out of the door, John ran to his room and grabbed the drone. He went outside and prepared to fly his drone after Donna. At first, everything seemed normal. He watched her walk towards the pharmacy, but then she suddenly took a turn in another direction. John felt his anxiety creeping in. Why isn't his wife going to work? What is she doing? John's heart was racing as he followed Donna with his drone. She made her way towards an unfamiliar location. Somewhere he had never been before. Finally, Donna arrived at a parking lot where a car was already waiting for her. John couldn't believe what he was seeing, but this was only the beginning. In the meantime, his wife approached the strange car, untied her hair, and brushed through it with her fingers. She seemed calm and relaxed. John could hear his heart pounding in his chest. He could hardly control himself. He didn't know his wife as well as he thought. She was clearly hiding something from him. He froze as he watched her walk towards the driver's seat window and kiss the person sitting inside on the cheek. Then, she opened the passenger's door and got in. John couldn't stand watching it any longer. He brought the drone back to the house and shut the door behind him. He felt the tears running down his face. How could she do it to him and their children? John decided to confront her about what he saw as soon as she got home. He waited for what seemed like an eternity. Finally, he heard Donna walking towards the front door. Suddenly, he found himself unable to say a word. He just stood there in front of his wife with tears in his eyes. Eventually, he managed to pull himself together and told her everything. Donna explained she was helping out at another location in another town. She wanted to make a good impression on the manager and staff at the other pharmacy. That's why she wore makeup and bought new clothes. The car John saw her getting into belonged to her friend and coworker, Marissa. Every day, Marissa picked her up from the parking lot, and they drove together to work. Donna had told her husband about it many times before, but he always forgot. So when he asked her about it for the 10th time, her patience ran out, and she replied to him vaguely. "After all, how many times do you have to explain the same thing over and over again?" Donna was annoyed at her husband. She felt like he wasn't listening to her in the slightest, causing her to distance herself from him to avoid a fight. John felt like a weight had been lifted off his shoulders. His wife wasn't cheating on him. Then, he remembered that she was telling him about it before. Donna was in disbelief when she learned her husband was spying on her. How could he not trust her? She asked him to promise to never do it again and listen to her better. John felt very guilty about it. This was all his fault. If only he paid better attention to what his wife was telling him. Would he be able to fix it? John's actions hurt Donna's feelings. After all, none of this was her fault, as she told him several times before that she was helping out at another pharmacy. Instead of listening to her and maybe offering her a ride to work, John went behind her back and spied on her with his drone. How could he be so immature? After talking it out with John, Donna forgave him, and their bond got even stronger after that. They love each other too much to let anything get in the way of their marriage. Everyone makes mistakes. Some people learn from them, and others don't. John started paying close attention to everything happening around him.